The following program is presented with closed captioning available. This is a service of Maricopa College's television, Channel 115.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the Governing Board meeting of November 27, 2012, and welcome everyone in the room. Our first item is a Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Lum, will you lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a number of substitutes tonight, and I would like to recognize them. Andrea Buman is representing Dr. Maria Harper-Marinick. Jim Bowers is representing Nikki Jackson. Janet Langley is sitting in for Dr. Jean Giovannini. And John Schroeder is sitting in for Dr. Linda Lujan. Appreciate your being here. We also have a class here tonight, and Dr. Maria Hesse, who is well known to us in the district, has brought her HED 634 class from Arizona State University, and we welcome that group here. It is time for the citizens' agenda, or interim rather, and the board offers opportunity for members of the public to address the governing board. In compliance with open meeting law, the governing board will neither discuss nor take action on issues raised during this portion of the agenda. When necessary, issues will be taken under advisement and placed on a subsequent agenda. We have one request, Mr. David Singer.
Good evening, Dr. Glasper, members of the board, and the CEC. I stand before you tonight as a former employee and a resident of the county to just address some of the circumstances that I believe were inadequately handled regarding personnel issues at the high school. Throughout my career, I've always striven to meet the diverse learning needs of our students that we serve in urban districts. And at PCPA, I was committed to creating a student-centered learning environment where the goal of improving educational outcomes for all students, especially the underserved students. It's for this reason that I continue to question why the district leadership has taken no action after receiving information about two of the staff members who were not performing their duties in an admirable manner or professional manner after having made observations and interviewing students and doing the things that high school principals do in order to manage their school. All information regarding the situation was presented to the district by way of a binder, a large binder. I have a copy over here, June 11th. I made a decision in January of 2012 to resign my position because it was evident that I was not getting any support whatsoever in a very, very crucial aspect of running the high school program. Personnel. We're a small school, and we had tremendous problems with individuals not exercising prudent judgment in how they treated students, minors, as well as students 16 years old of age and older. The documentation I've presented is very clear. There are 5 folders that I've taken a synopsis for the board. If you want the big version, you'd have to get it from the Office of Professional Stewardship, Human Resources, or the Office of Academic Affairs at PC. The most important thing to keep in mind, as far as I'm concerned, is the documentation also included information as early as my second year about personnel issues regarding the high school and how really inhibited our growth in the math department, for example, where after the first year we tried to help one of the individuals, or the only individual, who was failing literally 33 to 35% of the class. Somebody needs help. And consequently, that battle started, and it went on, and you couldn't help this person. And recommendations were made through human resources that if this person doesn't want to have help, get help, then they need to be terminated. And I had the documentation, was willing to bite the bullet to go forward with that. It didn't happen. As we turned in December 11th, more things happened with 2 members of the staff regarding how they were treating students, and nothing after reporting and making the complaints known and documentation, nothing happened. And I could no longer, in my heart of hearts, do the job I was hired to do. I was the only person in the classroom. No one came in the classroom to observe those teachers. No one talked to students to find out how they were being treated. So that's the reason I'm here at this point. I have tried every administrative protocol, gone through every possible chain of command to try to rectify the situation without bringing it to a public forum. But obviously, I was willing to let the situation kind of die out when Dr. Harper-Marinick responded to my August 18th letter stating they were taking the situation seriously, and because people were on vacation, they couldn't pay a lot of attention to it right away, but they would, and I was content. But a few weeks ago, having come in contact with some other people who had been associated with the school, the things I'm hearing out there, how the teachers' incompetencies are being kind of shrouded in things I did for 6 years. I led that school to a point where we wanted to move forward. And because they were the ones failing 33 to 50% of the class. 17 out of 18 students failed the Ames math in one of the particular classes because they were too busy trying to undermine things that they thought I was doing, and I, to this day, have no idea how that came about. Bottom line is that kids are being hurt, and that's why I'm taking a stand. This is not about me. It is about those students. And I think that things have to be looked into a little more directly, a little more boots on the ground type of leadership. The only boots on the ground leadership for 6 years was these boots. And that's it. Because there were no problems, we were compliant, things were done efficiently. Period. But when something came about with staff, it was a major fiasco to try to handle it. I got chastised for finding out what my rights were as far as school law because some of the situations dealt with 14-year-old students. Again, my goal is not to embarrass anybody or to bring disrespect to the district, but I believe the high school is here. You have to pay attention to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is... What? Oh. There's some of you standing by the wall. We have some chairs here in the front row, and you're welcome to come and find a chair. The next item on the agenda is governing board reports. Mr. Lum?
See, I went to the Allied Health at Glendale. I wasn't able to go on the Friday for when the mayor was there. I was able to go on Monday when the students were there, and it's a very good job. They had it was at Gateway College,
Gateway.
and it was the different universities were there to help the students if they want to sign up for a university as they transfer, as they finish our college and go to a university. And they had, when I was there, the lesson plan was on how to deal with stress, and I thought it was a very good job. And I got to meet several of the students, and I congratulate Gateway for that program. I was able to also go to Glendale College, where we had the Olympic gold medal winner in Beijing in 2008 as motivational speaker, Henry Cejudo, and awesome job. The kids loved them. There must have been 500 students there. Congratulations. I see some people from Glendale here. Congratulations for that event, and a marvelous motivational speaker, and he really hit the hearts of the students. That's my report.
Ms. Pearson?
No report.
Okay. Mr. Sarr?
I enjoyed that health industry presentation as well. We learned a great deal about how well we're doing in the industry, and that was good to know. Other than that, I just want to let people know that Saturday is a big football game between two of our internal schools, Mesa Community College and Glendale Community College. We haven't quite figured out yet what the bet is between the two presidents, but I've been told it's nothing to do with losing their hair. So
It's 10 push-ups and singing the Barney song.
But that game is at 1 o'clock at Glendale, so I'm looking forward to watching the game.
I attended the Allied Health Summit as well, and appreciated the presentations by a number of people so that we could get an overview of concerns about health and programs about health that our district is attending to. We had an AADGB meeting. I'll report on that in just a bit. But I also attended a Getting Ready conference in Tempe. That conference has to do with standard core, Common Core standards, which are being implemented in public schools with a design to help students prepare for college. We heard some excellent speakers and had an excellent discussion among participants about how to get ready for that. So that was a good day. In the internal community, Dr. Glassberg? Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Pearson, do you have something to say?
I had been enthralled thinking about what the public speaker had to say, and so was caught off guard. One of the things that I did intend to report on, I spent a week in Atlanta, Georgia with the National Foundation of Women Legislators, and there was a lot of focus on STEM and the how far away we are serving in the educational world the needs of business. Microsoft was there, NASA was there, veterans of different groups and organizations, many very impressive groups and large employers, and every one of them were basically saying the same thing, that education in the United States is not producing the STEM educated students that they need for filling positions that the other countries are. And so the push for these jobs to stay in this country is then going to mean visas to fill those positions with people who can fill them with the skills and education and knowledge that they need, or the jobs are going overseas because that's where the education is that will fill the positions they have. And so there was also a lot of conversation and discussion about where the future and other types of concerns or the questions that I have in energy and sustainability and the way that we think about electricity now and the jobs of now and where we're going as far as changes that are going to be occurring in the plants that are going to be shut down and what the jobs are going to look like in the future and openings that aren't going to be there in power the way that we think that they are. But the thing that really concerned me the most was when NASA talked about their partnerships and the changing of NASA and the face of NASA and the work that they're now doing with Microsoft and the partnering they're doing with Microsoft and the change of their direction and the number of jobs that they are predicting that they're going to have, with 70,000 leaving this country because we aren't educating this proper STEM needs for their future. So I'm hoping that we can really start looking at and partnering and working to see what we can do to be maybe Maricopa the solution to NASA, Microsoft. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Glasper?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I would like to make one presentation today, and it's in regard to the conference, the Getting Ahead Summit that you mentioned, which was entitled Getting Ready, that was on Wednesday, November 14th. Over the last 3+ years, the Arizona community colleges and state universities have been working under a Lumina grant, and we had entitled it a Getting Ahead grant, and we had an opportunity to profile some of the progress that we have made in the last 3.5 years, and increased productivity was the focus for all institutions, for the community colleges providing pathways to students to the universities. Part of the agenda featured a video that looked at some of the state's institutions that are involved in partnerships to enhance productivity, to address pathways to the universities, and I would like to take a few minutes and show that video, and Maricopa is also featured as one of the institutions. Our challenges in the last 4 years or so have been not in the urban districts, but mostly in the rural districts. But we have found some opportunities and some efforts through ASU, and Dr. Hesse was involved in leading a lot of this program as well. So go right ahead, Tina. Appreciate it.
Just trying to go full screen.
After one semester in college, Seth Walker joined the Army. 11 years and 2 deployments to Afghanistan later, Seth moved to Sierra Vista to work as an Army instructor. His passion for teaching ignited a spark. Seth was ready to go back to school and finish his degree. In order to complete his education, Seth chose a degree pathway known as the Cochise CATS program. This pathway allowed Seth to attend community college, in this case Cochise College, before seamlessly transferring to the University of Arizona Sierra Vista to complete his bachelor's degree.
Balancing work and school wasn't easy at all. Without the advisors, I wouldn't have been able to schedule my classes, I wouldn't have been able to get into the course catalogs and really plan out my plan to graduate. They streamlined it for me. They made sure I wasn't taking classes that wouldn't count towards my degree.
Students have always been able to transfer from a community college to a university. J.D. Rottweiler, president of Cochise College, explains what's changed.
Today, collaboration is how we get things done, and with the completion agenda, our desire to get students through associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees or directly into the workforce. And in the state of Arizona, the community colleges and the universities are working closer together than they ever had.
Ann Weaver Hart, president of the University of Arizona, believes these innovations will offer students more affordable and accessible options to pursue college statewide.
It's important for young people to know how to negotiate their way from high school to college to career with their degrees completed. Programs like the Cochise CATS help them do that, achieve their full 4-year degree programs, and be successful.
Through the efforts of a grant awarded by the Lumina Foundation, Arizona's higher education sectors have developed new funding formulas to reward degree completion and have been able to accelerate their efforts to collaborate on degree pathways. The universities and community colleges are partnering in new ways to deliver higher education in urban and rural areas. In fact, Arizona has 10 community college districts that partner with our 3 public universities. Together, they offer students an opportunity to earn a bachelor's degree through more than 1,200 pathway programs. Many pathways are available to students on community college campuses or online, making it easier to earn a degree regardless of where they live. A typical Arizona pathway guides students on a prescribed set of coursework, helping to prevent the loss of time or tuition dollars on courses that don't apply to their degree. Benefits include the seamless transfer of credits, cross-trained staffs at our colleges and universities, scholarship opportunities, and guaranteed program admission. Students who pursue a degree pathway from a community college to a university save anywhere from 15 to 50% in tuition costs. In addition, e-advising tools that help students and parents plan for college have been enhanced. aztransfer.com helps high school students learn how they can begin earning college credit in high school and serves as a one-stop shop to assist students who want to transfer from Arizona's public and tribal community colleges to the 3 state universities. John Hager, president of Northern Arizona University, and Leah Bornstein, president of Coconino Community College, offer another innovative example of the collaboration between Arizona's community colleges and universities with the CCC to NAU program.
The reason the program CCC to NAU has been so successful and recognized nationally is because it changes the whole system. It changes institutional competition, which has tended to be the case between universities and community colleges. Second, its focuses on the student and how to make the student successful.
If you are a student in this program, you are a student of CCC and NAU at the same time. Retention rates in this program have jumped 70%, and we're seeing wonderful increases in academic success by virtue of increased GPAs as our students are transitioning over to NAU.
One student to benefit from the CCC to NAU pathway is Hans Drexler. As a new parent, it was the flexible pathway he needed to earn a degree.
I returned to the classroom after about 15 years of being out of school, and it was stressful being one of the older students and having a family. My advisor helped me to understand what my class load was going to be like, what to expect with the classes, and he always encouraged me to keep the end goal in mind.
Hans chose the field of nursing because of the field's growth potential and the state's demand for healthcare workers, demonstrating an important point. Arizona's higher education system is inextricably linked to our state's workforce needs. A highly skilled and educated workforce attracts economic investment from around the world and drives innovation. Arizona is producing graduates like Hans who are equipped for high-demand fields such as healthcare. It's imperative that our state is able to produce ready-to-employ citizens with a higher-level skill set in order for Arizona to remain economically competitive. One of the pathway programs designed to meet our workforce needs is the Maricopa ASU Pathways Program, known as MAP. Chancellor of Maricopa Community Colleges, Rufus Glasper, explains.
It provides incentives for our students. It basically says if you enroll in the program and you're eligible for transfer to the universities, then you have guaranteed admissions into the individual programs, that you will have a guaranteed tuition incentive, that you will have scholarships if you're a meritorious student that will follow with you. And the students find this an easy opportunity and a pathway that they can follow.
Following in the footsteps of her older brothers, Shiva Shariari is a pre-med student at Arizona State University taking advantage of a pathway program.
In the MAP program, I took 2 years at Mesa Community College, and then I transferred to ASU easily with a major in health sciences. I used the website aztransfer.com, and it really helped me with the course equivalency guide that they had. It showed you if you're going from like MCC or CGCC, whatever community college, what the equivalent of that class would be to the university. So instead of taking classes that aren't going to transfer to what you want, looking at that guide, it will tell you exactly what it will count as and what it won't count as.
Michael Crow, president of Arizona State University, explains why innovating our state's higher education system is so crucial to our future success.
As has always been the case, the economy in the United States increasingly is relying upon higher levels of educational attainment. Schools that can produce and places that can produce people at the highest level will attract those jobs that are the most innovative, most creative, and highest paying. We know this is working on the global scale. We know that for America to be successful, it has to work here. For it to work in Arizona, we've got to outproduce everyone else in terms of having people at this level of educational attainment. Pathways is our method to do that.
Look around any Arizona campus, be it a community college or a public university, and you'll see the leaders of tomorrow. Leaders like Seth, Hans, and Shiva.
Thanks to the innovations in higher education, I'm going to be a professor.
I'm going to be a nurse.
And I'm going to be a doctor.
It's never too soon to start your journey. Design your own degree pathway today at aztransfer.com.
I just would like to make a couple of comments regarding the Lumina grant and where we are with pathways. We've demonstrated in the state of Arizona that we can build regional programs such as the ones that exist up in Prescott with Yavapai and also NAU. It's shown on the screen that we can reduce costs by up to 50%. and that working with the community colleges is a good opportunity for both the university and the community colleges. I want to thank ASU and Maria for reaching out to the rural districts and making sure that they found opportunities to establish cohorts and be a part of this change. In Maricopa, with ASU, we have enrolled into our Pathways program up to 11,000 students, and we currently have about 8,000 or 9,000 that are currently active. It is a program that, as stated, has guarantees. And if a student stays on that pathway, they're guaranteed to go into their individual colleges and not just the university. So it is working. We expect that these numbers will grow over time and the cost for education will be reduced for our students, and that our students will be able to reduce the amount of time it takes to get a bachelor's degree if that is their goal. So we think it's an excellent program, and we hope that it will continue and build upon the trust that we have developed in the last 3 to 4 years. That's my report.
Thank you. Secretary's report, Mr. Sarr.
None.
Okay. Student life reports of Mr. Mike Ho from Paradise Valley Community College.
Chancellor Glasper, President Berg, members of the board, CEC. It's my pleasure to introduce the Student Leadership Council of Paradise Valley Community College.
Good evening, President Burke, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, CEC representatives, and college presidents, MCCD, and community members. My name is O'Shea Chaudhary, and I am the current chairperson for Paradise Valley Community College's Student Leadership Council. Today I've brought with me a few members of our council to tell you more about PVCC's community events, student advocacy, and civic engagement activities. I'd like to first introduce Christy McGrady to speak about our community events. My name is Christy McGrady, and I am an elementary education student and a senator on PVCC Student Leadership Council. We've had many wonderful opportunities to get involved in community events. One of them was a fall festival, which was a great opportunity to bring community members on our campus. We had a wonderful outcome of clubs and students. We had a pumpkin carving contest as well as a costume contest and many different fall festival activities. On November 15th, we celebrated Native American History Month with an Indigenous Heritage Day with the Native Pumas Club. A celebration was held in the courtyard outside the Student Union, where music and dancing took place. Many local Native American performance groups attended. For Veterans Day, the Veterans Club led a celebration to honor PVCC's veteran students. In addition, our theater club sponsored a celebration in our Center for Performing Arts entitled Re-Entry, which was a powerful documentary play about the United States Marines returning from deployment. Currently, we are working on our Adopt a Family project. We have adopted 8 families from John C. Lincoln. We held a kickoff event on November 14th with refreshments and pastries to ignite student interest to help out those families in need. We are currently actively seeking donations from students and our local grocery stores. Now let me introduce Holly Tambor to talk about discuss student advocacy.
Hello, my name is Holly, and I am a business student and a senator on Student Leadership Council here at PVCC. And as student representatives, one of our core duties is to speak on behalf of the general student population. This past October, we were invited to speak with Vice Chancellor Felicia Ganther, and students brought forth the need for customer service training of the staff, mandatory college orientation, and required college success classes. Our student services building is also undergoing renovation, which started this past summer, and in order to help the students with the transitions, the students were surveyed in order to better accommodate their needs, and they reported that they were uninformed and needed help on navigation, so the administration responded by posting signage. Also, the Great American Smokeout was held on November 15th in order to supplement our efforts to eliminate smoking on campus, and several students took a pledge to give up smoking for 24 hours. I would now like to turn it over to AJ Gilman, our treasurer.
Hello, I'm AJ Gilman. I'm the treasurer of the Student Leadership Council, and I am currently dually enrolled in high school and in college. So, as part of the Maricopa College community, the district's participation in the democracy commitment, students have led several civic engagement activities on campus. We held a voter registration drive during a 4-week period to give students a more convenient way to register to vote. Additionally, we've worked with the Emerging Leaders program at our school to put on a Wear Your Choice Day, where students were encouraged to express their political views by making t-shirts. The Emerging Leaders students also informed many of the student body by putting on a presentation about the political candidates and many of the issues they addressed, such as education, employment, and healthcare. Finally, the College Republicans and the Young Democrats clubs held a mock debate in which they all discussed issues such as education, gay marriage, jobs, and foreign involvement. I'm now going to turn it over to Shay for closing remarks.
Thank you for taking the time out to listen to our PVCC leaders. We always appreciate your support at Paradise Valley Community College. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all of you students. You've presented a vibrant picture of student life at Paradise Valley, and especially enjoyed the last part about the democratic process during the fall election. So I congratulate all of you on your activities. Thank you. The next person to speak is Mr. Harold Cranswick from the Faculty Executive Council.
Good evening, President Burke, members of the Governing Board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and guests. In keeping with the increased emphasis on student success, this month the Faculty Association is using the President's time to provide you with an inside look at how faculty are providing students, helping to promote student success in the Maricopa Community Colleges. Making the presentation tonight will be Dr. Marianne Rocafort from the Counseling Department at Paradise Valley Community College and Mr. Jason Martinez from the Counseling Department at Estrella Mountain Community College. Marianne and Jason will acquaint us with a wide variety of efforts designed to help our students succeed in their chosen endeavors and to help the district achieve the Governing Board's outcomes.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having us. I've been in the district since 1998, at Paradise Valley since '99, and it has been a pleasure to serve as a service faculty member in the counseling division. And my colleague?
Good evening, Chancellor Glasper, board members, executive council members. My name is Jason Martinez. This is my 20th year as an employee of Maricopa and my 10th year as residential counseling faculty.
No?
We're going to go old school.
Old school, all right. And one more. And I'd also like to thank Professor Cranswick for this opportunity to feature what counselors do. And we often hear that there's a little bit of fuzziness about what counselors do. We have a dual role. We're teaching faculty. We also provide individual instruction. And so this evening we're going to give you just a bit of an outlook on how we do that. Our training has prepared us to do both the individual counseling as well as classroom instruction, specifically in CPD classes. CPD is Counseling and Personal Development, BHS is Behavioral Health Sciences. And because of the complexity of our role, we have found that there's some areas that we'd like to clarify for you. So the first area is individual counseling, personal counseling. Specifically in 4 areas: personal, career, academic, educational planning in the long term, as well as crisis. And we've all heard a lot in the national news about the kinds of crises that students often encounter and how serious it is that there be individuals on campus ready to handle those kinds of crises. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. In terms of personal counseling, every student comes with a whole individual package of who they are, their history, the reasons for being there, and also their goals in identifying what their strengths are and how to manage their individual family lives. Oftentimes people are coming with full family responsibilities as well as coming back to school, and often they don't have a goal that is very clear cut. So a lot of what we find ourselves doing, and it is our pleasure to do this, is to help students identify who they are, what their strengths are, where they're headed, and what some of the challenges and barriers are so that they can develop a strategy that is unique to them.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm a returning student as well as a first-generation to college student. My first few semesters here, I was trying to balance work and life in school, but I was feeling very overwhelmed. To add to this, my son, who is in the Navy, was deployed to Iraq, and this caused a lot of stress and anxiety for me. I was discussing this with a friend, and she told me that there are counselors here on campus. So I called and made an appointment. I sat down with the counselor, and she taught me strategies on how to cope with my stress and anxiety, as well as how to balance out my time so that I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed. I have now graduated with my associate's degree, and in the spring, I'll be graduating with my bachelor's degree. The future is looking up.
So during the academic year of 2011-2012, we had about 27,000 individual sessions with students in the Maricopa district. So we're a little busy. And so what this does is the first part kind of summed up the governing board outcome 1, which is transfer education and general education support for our students. So now I'm going to talk about career counseling, which is a lion's share of the work that we do in the counseling departments. It consists of helping individuals discover their values, their skills, their interests, their personality types, and their signature strengths or their core strengths that are gonna make them successful as a student, but also successful as an employee, depending on the career they choose. So we're uniquely qualified through our training in our graduate programs, be it master's or PhD. There's certain coursework that we must attain in order to get these degrees. Career occupational planning, human development, analysis, tests and measurements, research methods. And most of us have worked for about a year for free for that 600 hours. I can tell you that was a little rough, but it was well worth it. And to show the support that we get internally, I would like to recognize my colleagues and ask all the counseling faculty who are present this evening to please stand. Thank you for that.
It was second year of college, and I was still undecided. I didn't know what I like, what I want to do, what I want to study, and what interests me. I took a couple classes offered by counseling department. In those classes, I learned about my values, my personalities, what interests me, and what I can be good at. I met with counselors inside classrooms and outside of the classrooms. We did multiple assessments, quizzes, and exercises to help me learn about myself, my interests, and what I can be good at. And now here I am. I graduated from college with honors and graduated from university summa cum laude. And now I'm studying to take the MCAT and pursue a career in medicine. And nothing would ever stop me because I know what I like.
So, and that thing, the presentation, the part of the presentation you just saw supports the governing board outcome number 2, which is workforce and economic development and support of those students that are transitioning or re-careering and those type of things.
The guidance that we offer students in terms of individual education planning is distinct from the work of the advisors in that we are working with the individual student to set a long-range plan that's going to be aligned with their personal strengths, with their career-related values, with their personality, with their interest areas. In addition to that, learning styles, study strategies, and dealing with any personal anxieties that might be interfering with their study habits. These are all the kinds of issues that we help students with in terms of their educational goals. And moving on to the crisis issues, national statistics do indicate that there's an increase in persistent severe psychological disorders among students, and just in spring of 2011, 20% of college students were diagnosed nationally and treated for depression and anxiety, and 31% of college students met criteria for alcohol abuse. Given the training that we counseling faculty have, we are prepared to work in a timely and appropriate way with individuals that present these kinds of serious needs. And some of the other issues that have come to us, and these come to us daily, very heavy representation of these issues in our offices, suicidal thoughts, sexual abuse, rape, domestic violence, homelessness, job loss, and persistent emotional and psychological concerns.
We also do quite a bit of internal and external outreach. Our internal outreach consists of consultations with faculty, with employees, with student groups, and programmatic outreach such as ACE, Hoops of Learning, supporting things like Men of Color, Veterans Office, career centers, athletic programs, and the occupational programs. Our external outreach includes community agencies, some of the local tribes, as you can see, Catholic Social Services, Friendly House, and this is a short list of the community agencies that we are in contact with and refer students to, back and forth for anything from housing to emergency funds to clinical counseling, you name it. And so the impact of counseling through instruction, I will let my colleague take over, talk about the CPD 150.
Absolutely. This is a powerful class. This is a class that most of you are probably familiar with, Strategies for College Success. It is designed to be a first-year college success class, and it encompasses pretty much three areas. One is self-motivation, recognizing one's personal learning style, and finding the intrinsic desire, motivation, and sort of personal management skills to make it the first year and beyond of school. The second area is study skills and study habits. And the third area is there is a component of career exploration and career decision making. So it's pretty comprehensive. Other things that we cover in that class are critical thinking, emotional intelligence, which obviously directly relates to success on the job, and personal responsibility, and making an educational plan. We have several of our colleagues who have conducted doctoral dissertations and have studied Maricopa Community College students who have completed the CPD 150 class, and we have very strong evidence to support the effectiveness of that course in particular and the various other college success classes that we have within the district. This all relates, what we just talked about all relates to the governing board outcome number 3 on developmental education, working with students, especially those in their first year of college.
The instructors are caring individuals who are willing to help at the drop of a dime. And this program also offers a course I found to be extremely beneficial, and I believe every student nationwide should be required to take this course. It's known as CPD 150, or Strategies for College Success. This course teaches you how you can be a more positive and more successful you by taking advantage of your inner creator and overcoming your inner victim. For me personally, I learned a lot about my true self and what I'm looking forward to accomplish in life.
With that, I would like to thank you. I want you to know that the Counseling Instructional Council is a very cohesive group. We do everything together, we plan together, we think together, and we believe very wholeheartedly in the One Maricopa ideology. And I hope that we have demonstrated that for you this evening. And again, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's a wonderful report. We appreciate what counselors do to support students and help them succeed. And we appreciate your aligning that report with our ends. That was very, that was a good touch.
It was nice seeing all the counselors here too supporting it.
Yeah.
So thank you for the work you do, and I know it's difficult, and sometimes you don't feel like we're always questioning your role, but we really do appreciate the work you do, and we know how important it is to our students. Thank you.
Yep.
I've heard rumors that you think 150 should be mandatory.
All right, the next employee group, let's see, Mr. Ted Georges from Crafts.
This is your honor. He's going to be here someday doing this. So, President Burke, members of the board, Mr. Chancellor, members of CEC, and all you good folks that have come here this evening to help us conduct business that pertains to Maricopa. My name is Ted Georges, and I'm here representing Unified Crafts Association, along with...
My name is Mark McCool, and I'm in the Crafts Apprenticeship Program.
And we're here tonight to once again not only brag about how good crafts is for the district and how we get bang for our buck, but we are here to recognize a college that supports our apprenticeship program. And we're very fortunate to have people in such a high position that can brag about how well their crafts does for it. I know our president, Dr. Gaylor, and our vice president, Carl Couch, will say how wonderful we are because we're telling them how wonderful they are. But really, crafts is here for Maricopa, and we are the epitome of bang for your buck. So I'm not going to take much time, but I want to recognize a program, a college that is going to take Mr. McCool as a painter and is already there serving his last few months before he turns out as a journeyman. And I would like to recognize for their excellence and their foresight to get bang for their buck, Mesa Community College and Dr. Pan. I'm going to give him money. Give him the right envelope. Now, okay, there's still one more. Now, we know the presidents are super, super important, but let's all face it, the vice presidents of administration normally come up with the money. So we would also like to recognize such a person as the vice president of admin at Mesa Community College, Jeffrey Darba. Where is he? Is he here? He's not here? Okay, well, I can keep it then. We'll just give it to Dr. Pan, and we will thank him for his service. And remember, crafts means bang for your buck. And someday, maybe he'll be here doing this. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Phil Jalowick from the Adjunct Faculty Association.
Good evening, President Burke, members of the Governing Board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and our many, many guests this evening. I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to our Vice President-elects. We have Karen Seda from Estrella Mountain and Sarah McLean from Gateway. We also have our heir apparent President-elect Alicia Hand, who's from Phoenix College. So we're very happy to have them coming on board. It is important that I begin my comments this evening by first acknowledging the progress on adjunct faculty issues that has been made over the last 2 years. We appreciate the support offered by Chancellor Glasper, Executive Vice Chancellor Harper Marinick, and the efforts of Vice Chancellor Jackson and the Human Resources staff members. I personally want to thank you all for your patience with our persistence and, on occasion, annoying, determined advocacy for adjunct faculty issues. In the context of the question, when is an adjunct faculty an employee, we have compiled and published and updated a district-wide adjunct faculty employee handbook. We've addressed indemnity issues, employment status issues, and made some nice adjustments to our tuition waiver policies, among many others. We even found our way through some pretty difficult issues dealing with adjunct faculty load, policies, processes, and practice. Secondly, I want to acknowledge and, more importantly, share the adjunct faculty's full support for the focus on student success and the completion agenda, and the strategic choices that the leadership of the district and each of the colleges are making to ensure continue to focus on real results that benefit students. One particular strategic choice that is very exciting for a significant portion of adjunct faculty is that of increasing the ratio of residential faculty to adjunct faculty. Over 40%, that's about 2,000 or so, adjunct faculty have a primary interest in a full-time instructional opportunity. And the Adjunct Faculty Association is sponsoring a series of workshops and putting together a set of resources to help interested adjunct faculty be prepared to effectively compete for these positions as they come open. We know they're relatively rare, and we want to be there when they do come about. While we are aware that the challenge that the district has taken on is large, and we appreciate that the bold steps being taken to set a new course for this enterprise is testing our capacity for change, it is still our obligation to bring forward and highlight substantial issues with a frequency that is a reflection of their importance to adjunct faculty. The adjunct faculty employee experience, for the most part, is in the hands of the department chair and their designees. The current system is governed more by RFP and college plans than policy changes. Even when there are policy changes, the procedures and practices do not change for a significant portion of adjunct faculty. We have an adjunct faculty supervisory architecture through which 200 different organizations, each with their own hiring process, practices, and procedures, oversee 6,000 adjunct faculty. This system is more akin to feudal systems from the days of yore than a system in which accountability and metrics are part of effectively applying our human resources. One problematic aspect of this system is that adjunct faculty have to apply to 10 different departments to be considered for hire because the online system is optional. Though the processes and practices necessary to ensure equal opportunity employment may not technically apply to part-time faculty, Maricopa values like diversity, hiring the best, and valuing our human resources should apply to adjunct faculty, not just to mitigate attendant risk management issues, but because it is part of our commitment to these values. We understand that we risk insulting department chairs by bringing up these issues. However, while some may attribute these issues to personality differences, we feel that there is opportunity for improvement here, that these issues are related more to lack of understanding of responsibilities, to preparation for the role, and highly variable processes and practices. We are also aware of the challenge our friends in the Faculty Association face in achieving traction amongst their constituents on these issues. But enhancing the department chair system is part and parcel to faculty stepping up their contribution to meeting the challenges of student success and the completion agenda. We simply ask that the multi-year process of evolution for the adjunct faculty supervisory system begin sooner rather than later, and that adjunct faculty be afforded the opportunity to contribute their perspectives on the issues. Dr. Glasper, Dr. Maria Harper-Marinick, and all the college presidents frequently and sincerely express how much adjunct faculty are valued. But these messages are for naught when value is not part of the communication, hiring, assessment notice, support, and in some cases, quite frankly, basic professional courtesy that is a significant portion of adjunct faculty experience. Therefore, change is essential. The district has engaged over 800 new adjunct faculty this year. The challenge of effectively incorporating this many new employees would be daunting in any organization, let alone one in which the employee must be immediately effective in ensuring student success. Do they know the role they play in student success in the completion agenda from a Maricopa perspective? Do they understand the criticality of engagement in the first 3 or 4 weeks and how to achieve that? Do they know the importance of student feedback, assess early and assess often? Are they prepared to provide the guidance to resources for their students? Do they know our systems of referral, tutoring, and discipline processes? Do they know the resources available to them to help them be successful? Are they prepared to provide timely grades within our latest learning management system? Are they aware the basis upon which they're going to be evaluated? These questions are just part of department chair supervisory responsibilities. The seamless student experience is critical to making our objectives and achieving student success. And we think it is also time for a seamless adjunct faculty experience. Thank you.
I have a few questions. I have a question. Can you tell me about your election, how that process works?
Oh, you mean for our board?
Yes.
Basically, we do open solicitations amongst 6,000 adjunct faculty. To be elected for the board, you have to be a member of the association of now about 1,400 or so. We basically solicit these nominations. At the last meeting, we had 4 presenters for a vice president, 2 for president, and the board selects amongst those presenters.
So the president-elect is one of the 2 people that solicit the name?
No, actually, the president, for president, we actually had a decision for the 2 presenters as none of the above. We are actually moving forward with one of our vice presidents for the role of president.
And who elects?
The board.
Just the board?
The board of our 501c3.
But the adjunct doesn't vote for it?
The adjuncts at large do not vote for the officers of the organization. That's correct.
And were you one of the votes that you didn't want any of the above?
Don't think I'm obliged to answer that question.
And how much is that position paid?
The district, when the district engages the adjunct faculty for these roles, depending on the allocation of responsibilities, there are about 30 load hour equivalents for the officers of the organization, and that's allocated based on what level those people are engaging in. And over time, it's been balanced. There's been more for one position or the other.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, this is what I've been waiting and wanting to hear for about 4 years now, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jello, the board appreciates the adjunct faculty's commitment to professional concerns, for your commitment to professional growth, and for your commitment to teaching. We appreciate your work very much. We have a Vice Chancellor report, Dr. Steve Helfgott.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke, members of the board, I want once more to invite the governing board to join us on Wednesday, December the 12th, for the soft launch of our Educating Our Community, Ensuring Our Future campaign at a reception at Gateway Community College. This will be the first opportunity we have to bring together all of the leadership, both volunteer and staff, of our campaign. This will include the members of the campaign steering committee who will meet for the first time that afternoon, the foundation board, the governing board, the CEC, the college development staff, and the foundation staff. We are at that moment in time when we are about to launch this effort. We look forward to the opportunity of giving all of these leaders the opportunity to meet with and socialize with one another, and we hope all of you will be able to join us that afternoon.
Thank you. That's the only Vice Chancellor report I have down. Are there any others? All right, college reports. Dr. Paul Dale from Paradise Valley Community College.
Thank you, President Burke. President Burke, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, CC colleagues, and guests, it is my privilege tonight to present the very special award winner and to provide a college update on our interdisciplinary health sciences programs. Before I begin, please allow me a Puma athletic pride moment to publicly announce that the PVCC women's soccer team is the 2012 NJCAA national champions after going 23-0-1 and winning the national tournament in Florida. I will officially present the team at a future board meeting. This is our second soccer national title in the last 3 years and our 10th overall title across all our sports. So please allow me that quick commercial there for athletics. Now it is with even deeper Puma pride that is my honor to introduce to you the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education, CASE, the 2012 Professor of the Year, Dr. Lois Romadili, Creative Writing Faculty Member. She is one of 4 honorees chosen from over 300 distinguished professors nationwide. Her award was recently presented to her in Washington, D.C. during a luncheon at the National Press Club, followed by a congressional reception. I have asked Dr. Romadili to share a few reflections on this very distinguished award. Lois, may I please invite you to the podium?
Thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity to give you a few reflections on my being named U.S. Professor of the Year. On a personal level, all I can tell you is that I'm still a bit stunned by this honor. But it is an honor and a privilege to be able to represent Paradise Valley Community College and the Maricopa Community College District in Washington on November 15th, and to be able to tell the story of us, to be able to say to everyone who would listen that good teaching doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I said over and over again throughout the day and in the evening that our campus is a culture where everyone contributes and everyone creates a community where the love of learning is in itself a value. And I'd like to say that we here in this room and on my campus believe in what we do, and we believe in one another. But, as I said in my speech in Washington, in my view, the community college on a national level is one of our best known institutions and best kept secrets. And what I mean by that is that the image of the community college does not fully meet the reality. And I'm not talking, oh, I left my notes here. I'm not talking about all of us in this room. We talk to each other. We know what we're about. But I'm talking about, on a day-to-day basis, what I have to deal with in my classrooms. And, of course, talking to my colleagues. I belong to a national organization, the Association of Writers and Writing Programs. I've also been involved in the 2-year college caucus for 10 years or more. And so it's not just my perception, but talking with my colleagues on a national level about the image of the community college. If you do just a Google search, a simple Google search, as I did this weekend, and you put in community college, best community college experience, what comes up over and over and over again is affordable. Maybe if you dig a little deeper, you'll see the words workforce education. Well, that's of course true. We're affordable, we have workforce education, but we are so much more than that. We are so much more than that, and in my view, I'm not quite convinced that that message is getting out there. And I believe that Maricopa Community College District, our 10 colleges, my colleagues, my home campus that I love so much, is poised to lead that national conversation, to reshape and redefine what the community college is about. To say that the culture of learning, of for and of learning, is in itself of value. That for some, the community college experience is the preferred experience. For some. And that we are more than a way station to someplace else. And I'm not saying that you know, all of us in education, I'm talking about from kindergarten to advanced degrees, are all in it together, and we're all looking for the future, and yay, we're all good for us, okay? But I want to say that this message of the experience of the community college culture, that our community is a message that I'm not sure really is being clearly articulated. And I'm very proud and honored to be part of that conversation, and proud and honored to stand before you tonight as the U.S. Professor of the Year winner. But it didn't happen alone. My teaching doesn't happen alone. If a teacher falls in the forest and no one's there to hear, you know. So I just want to say thank you all. Thank you, Paul, for your continued support and the good work that you do. Long hours and lots of meetings. And I know that you all know that what we do counts and matters. I'm just here to suggest perhaps our message needs to be reshaped and refined just a little bit. So thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you again, Lois. And by the way, her speech from DC is on YouTube, and I will send a link that to the board. It is a wonderful speech, quite dramatic. It is now my pleasure to welcome Dr. Denise DiGianfilippo, Paradise Valley Community College's Dean of Academic Affairs, to the podium. Dr. DiGianfilippo will lead the presentation on our new integrated approach to health sciences, leveraging the recently opened new clinical lab building on our campus. Denise?
Good evening, President Burke, members of the Governing Board, Chancellor Grasper, and members of the CEC and honored guests. Approximately 1 year ago, Paradise Valley Community College was faced with the need to provide additional laboratory space for our nursing program. Our first concern with this project was student learning. How can we prepare our students to be successful for the future directions of healthcare? What type of learning opportunities will facilitate their learning? In the 1980s, interprofessional education and practice was prominent in the United States and Canada. However, during the 1990s, it began to fade in the United States while still remaining prominent in Canada. Since the release of the 2010 Institute of Medicine report on the future of nursing, The foci of future of healthcare education and practice has been population-based and interdisciplinary practice for improved quality of patient-centered care. PVCC currently offers 8 degrees and certificates for pathways into healthcare. Given the foci of the future healthcare directions, it became evident that our educational opportunities for students should mirror these directions. Hence, the name of our facility became Health Sciences, and integration of professional education and practice. Since function should drive the design of the building, 5 functional goals were established to assess in the design process. And again, integrated the educational concept that serves as the heart of the learning processes to occur within this facility. Design features included in this facility are functional bed units, allowing a variety of disciplines to practice in a realistic environment, either independently or in teams. Tutor track software to log student practice time and or required remediation. An exam room to assess student skill competency. iCoda software to engage students that are not immediately involved in the simulation to remain engaged in the learning experience through peer critique of identified competencies through the use of iPads. 2 simulation suites engaging students in realistic situational education experiences, with Studio Code software offering digital recording and video streaming of simulations in the exam room, simulation suites, hallway, and external staging area. Lairdale and Medi simulations provide realistic patient responses throughout the lifespan. A mock bathroom has been included to allow first responders to rescue patients from a limited space environment, with external staging area for first responders in interprofessional simulations, linking the EMT paramedic classroom lab with the health sciences facility. Why interpersonal professional education and practice? With the focus of interdisciplinary patient-centered care reemerging, the time is now to implement IPEP. These competency domains are common in most all of the professional education programs. However, most of the instruction associated with these domains is done in professional silence for professions that are expected to function and practice as teams. Infusion of these competency domains can be seen at PVCC in areas of education, practice, and simulation. The next thing that I have to show you is a video of the actual simulation that occurred on our grand opening. And hopefully you were able to pick up one of our brochures from the grand opening, which actually details each act a little bit more.
The new Health Sciences building at Paradise Valley Community College opened on October 19th with a ceremonial ribbon cutting and emergency trauma simulation where nursing, EMT, and paramedic students practice life-saving skills in a dramatic, realistic setting.
Today's a big celebration to have a grand opening for this building here. It's an opportunity for us to showcase the simulation labs, the clinical labs, the partnerships between our nursing program, our EMT paramedic programs.
This state-of-the-art facility provides real-world learning.
The building is absolutely incredible. I feel so fortunate to be able to work in a building that simulates real life.
The Mayo Hospital partners with PVCC in trauma education for EMT and nursing students.
We also have a simulation center at the hospital that the paramedic students rotate through. And we do that for every class that we put them through advanced simulations.
Theater, journalism, and communication students also took part in the trauma simulation.
It's beneficial for people that are in the nursing program or the medical program because it gives them a taste of what would happen in real life as opposed to working on dummies or things that don't respond to you as well as a real person does.
PVCC's healthcare programs are pioneering interprofessional education and real-world hands-on learning.
Any student that was thinking about getting an EMT program, obviously I would steer them towards us because I have professional paramedic instructors that are still active in the fire department right now, usually with over 20, 25 years of experience. So we're not just going to give them theory on how to take care of people. We're going to give them real-world application from real professionals that still currently do this in the field.
This is Miguel Saucedo reporting for Paradise Valley Community College.
Okay, we are going to continue to infuse the interprofessional education at PVCC, and this is just a list of a few of the things that we have upcoming for spring. Our theater students will continue to be used as standardized patients. We'll give them scenarios and they will act out in our lab what those patients are like. We're going to explore potential areas of collaboration with business, dietary tech, and exercise science, and further integration into common areas of the actual curricula from both the EMT and the nursing. And we are establishing for fall of 2014 a chapter of the Arizona chapter of the Health Occupation Students of America, which will further associate the interdisciplinary education. So thank you very much for letting me share this.
Next is Dr. Brian Tippett, and yes, I believe, Dr. Tippett, you're presenting, yes? And Mr. Jonathan Robles, is that right?
President Burke, if I could, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, CEC colleagues and guests, after a recent meeting and discussion with Board Member Lum about partnerships and initiatives with the elementary and secondary schools, Mr. Lum requested that Estrella Mountain share with the governing board what we've been doing in the West Valley to improve student success along the P20 pipeline. So I would like to introduce Dr. Brian Tippett, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Estrella Mountain, Dr. Julianne Lean, Superintendent of Litchfield Elementary School District, Mr. Mark Jornstad, Superintendent of Saddle Mountain Unified District, and Jonathan Robles, Director of Estrella Mountain's Title V program, and they will present a brief history and an update on the West Valley Think Tank and our K-20 partnership.
Thank you, Dr. Lara. President Burke, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, Chancellor Executive Council members, members of the audience. We thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time to present on some of the great work that is occurring in the land between Phoenix and Los Angeles. And while there is a lot of Puma power in the room tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about what the mountain lions are doing. And again, we could not do this without a lot of collaboration through the West Valley Think Tank. The West Valley Think Tank was founded in 1999. I would like to say that these will be some of the topics that we will be covering this evening. Again, to give you perhaps a view of what's occurring at a 30,000-foot level, quite a bit of detail that we will not be able to get into this evening because of time, but certainly if you have any other follow-up questions that you would like us to address, we're happy to do that on your behalf. But again, the think tank was founded in 1999. These are the folks who are members of the think tank. I would like to give a very special shout out to Dr. Anasali, who is one of the founding members of the West Valley think tank and leading a lot of the great work that is occurring in the West Valley. It is a very collaborative group, as you can see, because of the disaggregated nature of education in the West Valley. It's not easy to coordinate efforts, but the West Valley think tank has been a truly wonderful vehicle and has presented great opportunities for us to collaborate on behalf of our students and improving student success and persistence. To give you a little bit of background, this was started back in 2009, so we've been doing this now for about 3 years. We decided one day that we needed help as a college as we looked at our success data, persistence data, that we really needed to look beyond just the college and begin to really have a serious dialogue with our K-12 partners. So we presented our college data on success and placement in developmental level education to the members of the West Valley think tank. I will call on my colleague Drs. Lean and Jorenstadt in a few moments to give their feedback on their perceptions when we presented that data. But I will tell you that the room was full of shock and wonderment as to what happens between the time students graduate from high school and take their placement exams at the community colleges. So when we went into the meeting and we asked for help on looking at what the achievement gaps are along the pipeline between the time students enter into nursery school levels, preschool levels, all the way up through university, we needed help with aligning curriculum because we know there are a lot of gaps in the pipeline. Because there's so many issues to address, we talked about math, we talked about reading, we talked about writing, the group decided that it would probably be best to begin with math because that's probably what everyone is most afraid of. And so let's just dive in and see what we can do in order to help not just our students in terms of doing better in school, but also the teachers who are also often very afraid to teach math because it may not be their strongest point. So in November, after we discussed what we might do, one of the superintendents suggested, oh, well, where I was from, we did a summit. And I said, well, that's nice. I know what that word means. I've never done one. But okay, we'll take that on and we'll see what we can do in putting together a summit. So we had a special working meeting within the council and held our first summit on February the 1st in 2010. I must tell you it was an extraordinary meeting with quite a number of education professionals, university, community college, K-12 sector who came together to talk about a number of the issues that are affecting all of us, particularly related to mathematics and mathematics curriculum and alignment issues. We brainstormed quite a bit of opportunities that are available to us in order to begin to start to fill in some of the gaps, and again, there were quite a few. And so we decided to limit it to 4 of the issues that were perhaps most prevalent as a result of those discussions, and these are those 4 which have been driving the work henceforth that we've been doing through the West Valley think tank. And I'll ask Mr. Robles to please come and talk about some of the collaborative initiatives that have resulted from those discussions.
Thank you, President Burke, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, and members of the CEC and guests for this opportunity to speak about the West Valley think tank. One of the charges the first collaborative initiative that was started was the math planning group. And the superintendents were very supportive of trying to address those 4 outcomes that Dr. Tippett had addressed earlier. So they decided to provide their math coaches, their teacher leaders, to form this math planning group and address those areas. And through Title V, we were able to support this because it really addressed a faculty-to-faculty information exchange activity for Title V, and we provided stipends for the professional development workshops that we later produced with this group. It was very apparent when we first came together as the math planning group that the one item that was causing a lot of anxiety with this group was the Common Core standards. And they suggested to us that this was something that we needed to help them develop some guidance and professional development around so that their math instruction could benefit. We continued to, before we moved forward, we developed a survey with this group around the Common Core, and we asked questions such as, what is some of the concepts that you wish your students knew but don't? And we divided that survey into grade bands, and we had the math planning group go back to their schools and disseminate that among their colleagues, their math teaching colleagues. We had an overwhelming response, and that helped us then decide which areas we were going to concentrate on professional development for this group. What we did then was we had our first workshop June of 2010, and we decided that we again would focus on dividing the group into grade bands, K through 3, 4 through 6, middle school, high school, college. And we had hands-on workshops where the facilitators could show how they could apply this Common Core into the classroom. A lot of the feedback from the instructors was that they knew what they were, but how to implement that in the classroom. So we decided to make these hands-on activities and and we were actually able to serve 300 now teachers. We've had total of 3 professional development workshops. The last one was August of this year. Another particular collaborative initiative that we're developing is the high school transcript gap analysis, which is part of a Title V activity where we are looking at our students who are presently at Estrella and going back in their high school transcripts and their math courses and looking at their math placement into Estrella and their courses at the first semester of Estrella to see what the performance gaps are and any correlations that we could glean from that. And we've been supporting that with the West Valley think tank, and the superintendents have been very supportive of us doing that because they have allowed us to go back to the high schools and get transcripts and then also help guide us in the questions that we're going to look at in the research analysis of this data. We've had 3 cohorts so far of that. Close to 400, over 400 students have been analyzed with that data. So that's a whole different kind of presentation at a different time. But that's another example of the great collaborative initiatives that we're doing with the West Valley think tank. And also what we've developed is kind of an offshoot of the math professional development workshops has been this need for the teachers and for our faculty, college faculty within the West Valley think tank is to do this continuing professional development activities. And one particular activity has been proposed is the online hybrid course from one of the faculty members from Glendale Community College, Michael Holfrich. And the next one is the Edmodo. It's a virtual resource center that has been offered by one of our Littleton Elementary School District members on the math planning group. So just by looking at the fact that we have a college professor and a member of our elementary school district proposing these type of activities shows you the diversity of our math planning group and the passion that they're trying to address all these issues and collaboratively working together. One of the things that has emerged as a challenge that the math planning group acknowledged or suggested was that it's difficult to teach math when the students' reading levels are not where they should be. Reading word problems is difficult. So they suggested it would be ideal if you could form a similar group to the math planning group but covering reading and language arts. So in the spring of 2012, we developed a first meeting similar to the model of the math planning group, and we're working and forging ahead with some professional development workshops around that. Again, focusing on the Common Core standards and using the same framework of dividing it in grade bands. We had a fall meeting, and we're developing further the workshop idea, which is the framework is going to be very interdisciplinary, involving instructional designers, K through 12, language arts teachers, and our college faculty. The main Common Core standard that we're looking at to involve in this professional development activity is the one that is about college readiness. And it's read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. Cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from that text. So they chose that one because that one is the first one regarding college readiness, and build a theme around that so that way it would be as interdisciplinary as possible. And that theme is the effect of natural disasters on politics. So it's, again, a great opportunity to get STEM people involved, faculty in reading, social justice issues, and again, use that as the theme or topic for language arts professional development. So, thank you.
So this has been a tremendous effort. It's taken a lot of collaboration from a lot of really great people, sacrificing a lot of their time in order to make this happen for the West Valley students. It would not happen without the support of our superintendents of our K-12 schools, without our community college presidents who have offered resources of their staff. But it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger with each new project, each new piece that we implement. And so we're at a part of the journey now where we have to decide how are we going to continue to sustain this wonderful effort that is occurring. There's so much energy, so much synergy when these professionals come together that we don't want it to die because we run out of money. Our Title V grant, and Jonathan has been extremely generous in supporting our efforts. Dr. Lara has been extremely generous in offering college funds as well to support some of the events. Our other 2 presidents, Dr. Sali and Kovala, have offered again support of their staff. Seth Goodman, who is the Title V director of Phoenix College, is currently now writing this up because we want to not only chronicle the history of the work we're doing, but we also want to use that as a stepping stone to begin our research and evaluation and effectiveness of the programming that we're doing. I think our superintendents might share some insights qualitatively as to how it's affecting their schools. But it's going to take a lot more effort in order to do this. And so we have to figure out how we're going to move forward as a collective group to sustain these tremendous efforts. And with that, I'm going to ask my superintendent colleagues, Dr. Julianne Lean and Dr. Mark Jorenstadt, to please come forward and talk a little bit about some of the brainstorming that is now occurring in the West Valley think tank in terms of perhaps offering sustenance to this great work, and to also share some of their reflections on the work that we're doing.
Mr. President, members of the Governing Board, Mr. Chancellor, my name is Julianne Lean, and I'm the superintendent of the Litchfield Elementary School District. So we go from preschool through 8th grade. Estrella Mountain Community College is in my school district, so we're very interested in partnership, and we receive great support from the community college in many ways. One of the things that Dr. Tippett did not mention is that the support that we got from the college financially through federal entitlements and other sources allowed them to pay teachers a stipend to come to a workshop on a Saturday and gave them lunch. Now, to elementary teachers, that's pretty important. So, and as you know, education has been cut pretty drastically. That was something that we could not afford, to have our teachers all come together and actually meet with college professors and high school teachers to kind of talk about each other's experiences. And that in itself was completely eye-opening. I have been an educator in the West Valley for 26 years, and Estrella Mountain is the community college system is the first higher ed system that ever came back and shared actual data of how our students do when they go on to college. Because when students start off in kindergarten and preschool, we have every intent that they will be successful and go on to college, but we don't always know what happens. So in the initial data, it talked about students entering the community college having an average reading level of around the 4th grade. I think that was that like close to the statistic? And I said, oh, no, no, no. There's 90% of my 8th graders who pass the Ames test, meets or exceeds the Ames test. And I turned to my high school superintendent. I said, what did you do? Muck them up when they went to high school, you know? When they left Litchfield, they could read. So I don't know what you higher ed people are doing to them. So that opened a lot of conversation about the K-12 system being very focused on state standards and the Ames test. And college professors really not giving a rip about the Ames test, until we're bringing it to our attention, saying, you know, that's our benchmark. That's what we measure everything by. When a student passes that, we're giving the message to parents that they're good to go. And logistically, they should pass your entrance exam and be able to take credit courses the first time out. So what do we need to do to make that happen, to make all those systems for students link up? So that is our work. Our next step is to kind of take a look at how do we focus particularly on the elementary teacher and the mathematical knowledge base that they will need to teach the core, the new Common Core. That's something that is creating a great deal of stress with elementary teachers. So we know that that instruction needs to be very specialized, taught by our best instructors who can explain things in ways that teachers will get them. Explain things in ways that they can walk away from the college classroom and immediately implement it in their classroom. So that's the part we're trying to figure out. How do districts come together with resources and incentives for teachers
through the community college to take these courses. That sum it up, Dave? Okay, thank you.
She's energetic. Members of the governing board, Chancellor Glasper, Doctors Laura, Kovala, Sali, thanks for this opportunity to share with you tonight our partnership and joint efforts with Estrella Mountain, Glendale, and Phoenix colleges. And we believe, Dr. Lean and I both, as well as some other superintendents, these efforts are really not only at the heart of your mission and values with their emphasis on teamwork, collaboration, and community outreach, they're at the heart of our mission too. And that's why this has been really such a success. One of the things I wanted to emphasize was what's our teachers' perspective on this? And they found this of immense value. Dr. Lean mentioned they enjoyed the opportunity to interact with college teachers in planning and discussing, with learning what's really expected at the college level. For our district, and I'm a unified district, K-12, 30 miles west of Phoenix, out by the largest nuclear plant in the world, and we always specialize in jokes about we don't perspire, we glow. But we're a K-12 district. In Estrella Mountain, Glendale, Phoenix College, there for a lot of our students who are not wealthy at all, they are really that pathway to a college education. And so our teachers really need to know what is expected for career and college success at those beginning courses. And especially the focus on mathematics has been important to us because you as college educators know, mathematics is a gatekeeper. That's the course that prevents a lot of our students from completion. One of the things our teachers really learned from this, and that we've learned as well, and my fellow superintendent addressed that, was that success at the college level in mathematics, it doesn't start at the high school, doesn't start at middle school. You know, we're convinced it starts around 4th or 5th grade at least, probably lower. What we've started to do in our district now to teach that Common Core math, geometry now starts at 4th grade with the Common Core. We all took geometry as sophomores in high school. No, those concepts now start in 4th grade. It takes a specialist now. That 4th grade teacher can't be teaching math and history and English and science. So we're departmentalizing in math now, principally as a result of this effort, all the way down to 4th grade. So we have math specialists down at those grade levels, so we know kids are getting a guaranteed and viable curriculum. That's one of the critical things that's come out of this collaboration for us. And another thing our teachers have said they really appreciated coming out of this work is that the college teachers, the high school teachers, the elementary teachers, all have repeatedly said, we've appreciated that out of everything, we've found things to bring back to the classroom. We started in theory, but we got down to the classroom reality. So we didn't just talk theoretically, have a good lunch, and go home, and life went on as usual. This last slide you see up here really, as Dr. Tippett mentioned, has brought us to the present and anticipates the future of the West Valley think tank. Is where do we go now with the West Valley think tank? And at our last meeting, we talked about, we don't want this just to be a think tank. We want this to be a do tank. Yeah. And if you'll forgive the expression, not a doo-doo tank. So we talked a lot about this, and finances are a key. And we are now really exploring the idea of developing a 501c3. Many of us as school districts have had to develop that to figure out a way to raise funds to supplement our work, and we're really exploring that idea as well, because it's much easier to secure grant funding with a collaborative when you've established this 501c3. So that's one of the things that we're really looking at doing as well. In our February meeting, we're going to come back and focus more on this and develop it further. But I believe that we have a strong future, primarily because we will continue to collaborate on our common goal, which is improving pathways to educational and lifelong success. Because we know that when we talk to our community about these pathways to success, we have promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep. Thank you.
So I'd like to say in closing, thank you so much to the community college presidents for all the tremendous support that you have provided us. It is a labor of love. I have learned so much working with our K-12 districts, things that were beyond my scope of imagination that they are dealing with. I applaud them for the efforts that they are putting forward. One of the ground rules that we laid down when we began our work was that there was no blame. You could not blame the segment of education before yours. And everyone has really held well to that. And I think it has allowed us to have some very open dialogue that has been very, very helpful to all of us. I'd also like to thank all of the superintendents of the West Valley Think Tank, particularly my two colleagues who are here with us this evening who made that long journey from points beyond Phoenix. And to my perhaps more handsome, younger, conjoined twin, Mr. Robles, who without his help, I really could not help move this forward. And so on behalf of everyone, I thank you for your time. And if there are any questions that you might have, we are more than happy to respond.
I have some questions, yeah. I want to thank the superintendents for being here. It's quite an honor to have you here, and we really welcome your input. And when we're looking at, when I'm talking to Dr. Lotta on the Common Core and the Park assessment, which is required to be in place on 2014, right? And we're not going to do the Ames test, we'll do the Park assessment. The East Valley had a coalition, and is this the coalition you need? Is this helpful? I mean, is there more of a coalition, or what else is needed, and how can we help you with? Because we want the students to come in, like you said, and not have to take our entry classes and just jump right into a class and not take an uncredited classes.
Yes. Mr. President, members of the governing board, I would say this is exactly.
We've been taped, so they probably want you on.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, this is exactly the type of support that we need. Not only data that the community college is wonderful in gathering and helping us answer key research questions, but also the support to bring people together. You know, right now, the financial support is key. We believe we have all the talent within our system to have a great integration of the Common Core if we can pool resources together as districts, with the central point being the community college.
Great to hear. Good.
I too want to thank everybody involved, from our college family to the superintendents in the K-12. And this is a big deal. We spend, I think the Chancellor said today, about $88 million a year on developmental ed within the district. I would just as soon spend that in other places. But we know that this is a student-focused issue that we've got to address K-12 and also at our own level. So I really applaud everybody involved. It's pretty exciting, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job.
I think this is the sort of thing that colleges and K-12 across the nation are going to have to do. 46 states have committed to to the Common Core standards. But I think you guys are a model, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Dr. Glasper, we have awards and recognitions.
We have one other president, Chris Bustamante.
Oh, I'm sure, yes, excuse me, got ahead of myself. My apologies. Dr. Bustamante.
Yes, President Burke, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, CEC members and guests,
As many of you know, Rio Salado College will formally open its 2 newest educational centers tomorrow in a grand opening celebration. These centers are located in West Phoenix near Thomas Road and 37th Avenue in 2 separate but adjacent buildings, one now owned by Rio and the district. We're opening a great, wonderful adult learning center in a former DES building, and the other one is owned by the Phoenix Union High School District. But we're now locating a youth media center called Spot 127. I'll let our speakers today let you know what that means and how they got their name. In our partnership agreement, Rio only pays operating expenses in that building owned by the Phoenix Union High School District, and it's a wonderful partnership, and it allows us to have this program within the building. The grand opening will take place tomorrow morning, and we look forward to having our Chancellor, Dr. Helfgott, and many of our board members attend tomorrow's event. Dr. Jim Paluzzi, who's our Vice President for Public Service at Rio Salado College and oversees our radio stations, and Mr. Greg Pereira, who's Executive Director of Spot 127 Youth Media Program, are here tonight to share more information about this exciting new center and program. I also want to acknowledge, if Jim didn't have plans to do that, that Lou Stanley, who's our Associate General Manager with radio stations, had an original vision for this program and has raised a lot of the funds that have really made this a successful venture. So Jim, I'll let you tell them a little bit more about the program.
Thank you, President Bustamante, President Burke, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, members of the CEC, and guests. Hidden stories are all around us right here in Phoenix. They aren't being told because traditional journalists simply don't know how to tell them. And they're not being told because the next generation journalists who could tell them aren't being trained. And, well, about 3 years ago, when I first arrived at Rio Salado College, I was surprised to find out that KJZZ had a teen radio project. As Dr. Bustamante referred to it, was the idea, the inspired idea of KJZZ's Associate General Manager, Lou Stanley. Back then, 3 years ago, it was a real small project, but every time I talked to Lou, I was persuaded, I was really convinced that this person had a vision for these young people. These young people who had no dreams of going to J school, journalism school at Columbia, or at Northwestern, or at the Cronkite School. They had no idea that they could possibly go to college any place. In fact, for many of them, the thought of graduating from high school was a dream. So I asked him to lead the battle to raise the private funding and the support to make it happen. He rose to the challenge, and before we show you anything of what you're about to see, I'd like to recognize Lou for his work. Lou, would you please stand up and be recognized? We launched Spot 127, and tomorrow, in a tough part of town, Spot 127 will officially open its doors to welcome young people. Young people like this person from the pilot project. A young person like this. People as young as 14 years of age, train them, coach them, counsel them, feed them, because journalists can't do journalism on an empty stomach. And really, most importantly, to empower them to tell the stories that all of us need to hear. This is the building. Dr. Bustamante referred to it. He took the lead in negotiating with Phoenix Union School District to acquire this as a no-cost lease. Notice the caption at the top. It says, "Before." We hired Greg Pereira, Executive Director of the Center, and he has the rest of the story.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Palutz. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. It's been incredible, the work we've been able to do within this community. We opened our doors for the first time on September 10th, and we've already served over 100 high school students from within the area. We've heard excellent stories today about linking of the education system K through 12 to college, and I like to think that Spot 127 is that bridge to make higher education attainable and to create that clear pathway for high school students. Because many of them won't go into journalism. I've got to tell you, the skills that they're learning are completely applicable to whatever they do go into. Because when you learn how to interview someone and learning those basic skills of how to shake hands and introduce yourself and ask intuitive questions and how to listen to their answers, that will serve you no matter what you choose to do in life. So to Dr. Paluzzi's point, we do have our grand opening tomorrow, which we're very excited for and we hope you can all come out to. But in addition to that, it's a statement, and I think that's the true opportunity that we have tomorrow. It's a statement that KJZZ, Rio Salado College, and the district are part of the community and are investing in the community. This center is located in an area of town. The nearest public school has a 91% free or reduced lunch rate, and that is one of the highest in the state of Arizona. And there we are, as their neighbors, bringing an educational institution and opportunities to these teenagers. And it's an incredible opportunity to do so. I was very fortunate as I left today on my way to this meeting to take a photo, the first photo of the completed building, and you are the first group to ever see the completed photo. So congratulations on that. And it just goes to show what happens when the community, when institutes of higher education come together and invest in the lives of young people. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the completed Spot 127. And that is a photo that has not been doctored in any way. That is the actual photo of what it looks like. And hopefully you can come out tomorrow to see it in person and take a tour.
Thank you very much for your support.
We appreciate
Thank you. Now, is there a channel where they can broadcast?
No, sir.
Of course, there will be an internet radio station because that's all they listen to these
Okay.
days, and we will be ready for them.
All right, great, thanks.
President Burke, I just might add that all of the monies for that center were raised in the community, not paid for by district funds.
Great, okay. Good work. Okay, we go to external community, and I have a report on the Arizona Association of District Governing Board Members. We met a couple of weeks ago, and the AADGB is planning a statewide meeting of governing board members for February 22nd, and governing board members will be hearing more particulars about that in weeks ahead. The second thing we discussed was the Arizona Community College Coordinating Council, which is on our agenda tonight. And representatives from each of the 10 districts discussed it at length at that meeting. Mr. Sarr, do you have an ASBA report?
This coming month is the annual conference for ASBA where school districts K-12, governing board members, and superintendents convene for 3 or 4 days to get brought up to date on what's going on in the state. I think I'm looking forward to a presentation that several of us in the community college are going to give on developmental ed, go figure. I'm going to change my thoughts on what I'm going to talk about after hearing the presentation tonight. So very apropos in terms of timing and the need for working as a full P20 effort is there, and I hope that this next conference in December will bring that even further along.
Thank you. Ms. Hill, do you have a legislative report? Ms. Patricia Hill.
Yes, I do. Good evening. President Burke, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and all others present. I'm here this evening to provide you with a brief legislative update. The outcome of a number of key elections is now known, as well as the outcome of leadership elections and committee chair and committee member assignments. In terms of the new legislative makeup, the Democrats picked up seats in both the House and the Senate, with a 13-17 split in the Senate and a 24-36 split in the House. The new legislative configuration has resulted in a shift in the partisan makeup of the majority of the committees in the Senate. Most of the smaller committees are now a 4-3 split between Democrats and Republicans. However, the larger committees, such as appropriations, are split 6-3. There were 9 statewide ballot questions on this election cycle. The electorate voted in favor of 3 of the questions. Proposition 204, Quality Education and Jobs, which would have established a 1-cent sales tax for education and infrastructure, failed to pass. 36.23% of the votes cast were in favor of the proposition, while 63.77% of the votes cast opposed the measure. This initiative included language to provide funding to community colleges once revenues reached a certain level. Leadership in the Senate is as follows. Senator Biggs, President, Senator McComish, Majority Leader, Senator Driggs, Majority Whip. For the minority, Senator Landrum Taylor is the Minority Leader, Senator Lopez is the Assistant Minority Leader, and Senator Tovar is the Minority Whip. On the House side, Representative Tobin retains his position as Speaker, with Representative Gowan as Majority Leader and Representative Gray as the Majority Whip. For the minority, Representative Campbell is the Minority Leader, with Representative Gallego as the Assistant Minority Leader and Representative Wheeler as the Minority Whip. Key committee chairs in the Senate are as follows. Senator Yee is Education. Senator Shooter retains his role as the Appropriations Chair. Senator Melvin takes over the Commerce, Energy, and Military Committee. Key committee chairs in the House are as follows. Representative Dial is the Higher Education and Workforce Development. And I would point out, unlike the Senate, the House does have two committees that share the responsibilities for education, split between higher ed and K-12. Representative Goodale is Education. Representative Kavanaugh also retains his position as chair of the Appropriations Committee. Representative Faris has moved from the Higher Education Committee, and he is now the Commerce Chair. We're in the process of meeting with new and returning members to help them to better understand the Maricopa Community Colleges and look forward to the upcoming session. We have a lot of education to do. Roughly 30% of the legislature is comprised of new legislators. Thank you, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda will be awards and recognitions. Dr. Dale has done the award for Dr. Lois Romadili. Dr. Glasper, you have an award.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, it is my pleasure to acknowledge that the district and our colleges have been awarded 8 medallion awards by the National Council on Marketing and Public Relations, and I would like to ask Tom Garapi to come forward and talk about those awards and share a little bit more information.
Thank you. President Burke, members of the Governing Board, Chancellor Glasper, CEC members, and friends. I have the pleasure of bringing you good news from the National Council on Marketing and Public Relations, which is the organization that represents marketing throughout the community college community in the United States. The district and its colleges have been awarded 8 medallion awards in the Western Regional Competition. NCMPR holds its national competition in a few months, so with luck, we'll be back with more good news when those results are in. This year's regional Maricopa winners are, in the Viewbook category, a gold medallion, Chandler Gilbert Community College Viewbook. The annual report category, a gold medallion, the Maricopa Community Colleges Foundation Annual Report, produced by District Marketing and Communications. In the Newsletter Magazine Media Guide category, a bronze medallion for the Maricopa Community Colleges Graphic Standards Guide, again produced by District Marketing and Communications. For website, a silver medallion, Phoenix College, the official website. Video program, Maricopa Now, the June 2012 edition, produced by MCTV. Marketing campaign, a gold medallion, Maricopa Sustainability Campaign, produced by District Marketing and Communications. Marketing campaign, a silver medallion, Maricopa Breathe Easy, produced by District Marketing and Communications. And finally, marketing campaign, a silver medallion, the 50th anniversary campaign, produced by District Marketing and Communications. Speaking as a representative of District Marketing, I can't tell you how proud I am of the work our people do day in and day out to create and maintain the public face of this institution and to produce materials and messages that promote student success. What I can tell you, and I know I speak for the college marketers as well, is that we're proud to be doing our best day in and day out to represent the quality the Maricopa Community Colleges embody. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes.
I like to watch Maricopa Now. I think that's an outstanding program, and congratulations to MCTV. I know you guys are filming it right now, and I think it's an awesome program, and it's also now on other stations. And all these awards, just wonderful. Thank you.
Ms. Thompson, you have
Mr. President, members of the board, the Valley Forward Association initiated the Environmental Excellence Awards in 1980 to recognize outstanding contributions to the physical environment of Valley communities. This year, there were 120 entries in 7 different categories. A professional panel of jurists granted a maximum of 2 awards of merit and only 1 first-place Criscordia award for each of the 7 categories. This year, at its 32nd Annual Environmental Excellence Awards program, the Valley Forward Association honored district building projects with 5 separate awards for 3 buildings developed under the 2004 bond program. The first, in the civic category for buildings and structures, was the first place Criscordia Award, and that went to the South Mountain Community Library. In the institutional category of buildings and structures, a second first place Criscordia Award went to the South Mountain Community Library. And the third award in the Art and Public Places category was the third first place Criscordia for the South Mountain Community Library and the Western Canal Public Art Project. The fourth award was also in the institutional category for buildings and structures, and that was an award of merit to the Integrated Education Building at Gateway. And the fifth award, also in the institutional category for buildings and structures, was an award of merit to the Nursing and Exercise Building at Mesa Community College. So in that category of institutional, in the institutional category for buildings and structures, the district's buildings swept the entire category in terms of the awards. This is the award, the Criscordia Award, that was bestowed upon the South Mountain Project. Lionel tells me it's about 25 pounds, so I won't pass it along. But you can see it, and it's quite impressive. Our warm congratulations and thanks go to the many faculty and staff at Mesa, Gateway, South Mountain, and in the District Department of Facilities and Planning and Development for all the work that they did to make these projects a success. And Dr. Olson would like to say a few remarks in recognition of the special honors bestowed upon South Mountain.
I would like to take this time to acknowledge those people that supported the design and construction of the South Mountain Library, of which I was not part of, but I believe we need to honor tonight those that go before us. Our previous president, Dr. Ken Atwater, and our vice president, Joyce Elsner, that we acknowledged a few meetings ago for their vision and their perseverance of seeing that building to where it is today. And then also our current vice president, Janet Ortega, did a lot of heavy lifting at the campus level, and I want to acknowledge her work, as well as our district partners, especially our partner who is always there for us, and that's Arlen Solacek. He just does a wonderful job for us, and he's a big part of how that building came to life. And really, I describe the building as a life-changing building. If you have not seen it, I just invite you to come to the college and just watch the people that come through the door. In the last year, there's been almost 500,000 people that have walked into the library and utilized it. And we do not know how many children's lives are changing because of it, but I believe many are in the South Phoenix area because we planted that beautiful building in a community that was desperately in need of such a building for children, teenagers, and young adults to live and learn in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move to the agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
I move to approve the order agenda.
Mr. Lum moves, Mr. Starr seconds the approval of the order of the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The next item is the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Starr moves.
Second.
Mr. Lum seconds a motion to approve the consent agenda. And is there any discussion or does anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. The next item is a consideration of a non-consent action item. Dr. Glasper?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I bring before you a resolution authorizing membership in the Arizona Community Colleges Coordinating Council. It is recommended that the governing board approve the resolution to authorize membership in the council as the public representative of Arizona's 10 public independent community college districts. As you are aware, in the 2003 fiscal year, the state eliminated the state board, and since that point in time, we have not had a single voice that represents community colleges in the state of Arizona. So this particular coordinating council will be representative of a single voice representing all 10 districts in the form of an executive director, an assistant director, a lobbyist, and staff. And we're asking for the board's support in order for us to move forward and be represented as a system within the state of Arizona and collectively with the other 9 community college districts.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution authorizing membership in the Arizona Community College Coordinating Council?
I move we approve.
Mr. Lum moves.
Second.
Ms. Pearson seconds the motion. Is there discussion?
I'd like to thank Dr. Glasper for his leadership on this. I think it's a very important organization that we're creating and moving into. I think it's his leadership that got this together, and have 100% consensus from the 10 community colleges. It's important that we work together not only on legislative issues, data collection, and coordination of future projects, and hope the community colleges create a better dialogue statewide. And so many other states have a state association, and we don't, you know, and I think there's a lot of areas that we can improve statewide, working together with the 10 community college districts in Arizona.
Others?
I'll pile on. Then Dr. Glasper's leadership got 10 community college districts to agree on one thing they've never done. So that was not an easy effort to get this consensus, and I applaud him and all those involved in putting this together.
Any other discussion? Ms. Pearson?
I'm amazed by this as well. I really appreciate the manner in which this has been put together and have a lot of respect for this, and I too applaud Dr. Glasper. I questioned whether this truly was 10. I thought maybe we discounted and it should be corrected, run an amendment to say 9, but he assures us that there's 10, and so that's pretty impressive. I was the legislator that did away with the state board. And I am not sorry for that. And so I do kind of feel like that this is very important to point out, because this is done by the community colleges.
Yes.
This is something that was actually promised way back then that was going to occur, and meltdowns occurred instead. When I did away with this, I was assured that the community colleges could do this, and it didn't happen. And so I am very, very grateful to see this finally come about, and I know that it's your leadership that made it happen. And I'm very, very grateful that Maricopa has stepped up to the plate and been such a huge part of making this happen, and especially Dr. Glasper, and thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I wasn't going to make this statement, but since Mrs. Pearson gave me the open, there are 9 other districts that have already received board approval, so the pressure is on. You are the last of the 10, and after you, then we move into motion. So.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The pressure's on.
Yes.
The next item is business services. Approval of a contract award for construction of the Rio Salado Queen Creek Communiversity in Queen Creek, Arizona. Ms. Thompson, would you care to comment?
Mr. President, members of the board, this is one of our projects from the 2004 bond program, and it will be the district's second communiversity. And this is for construction, so we're looking to, as rapidly as possible, complete the development of the facility and open it as soon as possible.
Okay.
We recommend its approval.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve this contract award.
So moved.
Mr. Sawyer moves.
Second.
Ms. Pearson seconds the motion for the approval of a contract award for construction of the Rio Salado Queen Creek Communiversity in Queen Creek, Arizona. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Bustamante for the concept of the communiversity. we wanted to share the idea with the East Valley. We have one in the West Valley, Northwest Valley, and it's just an awesome concept where students are coming together. They can go to, they can class from Glendale Community College or Rio Salado, and take a class from 3 or 4 universities, now also NAU. And so it's an awesome idea where we have one facility where we have universities and the community college there, and it just gives the students more open doors, more opportunity, and I think this concept, I hope, really benefits and helps the Queen Creek area.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Monitoring reports. Ms. Thompson, would you comment on the monitoring report?
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the monitoring report for the general fund for the first quarter of the fiscal year. We have expended about 26% of budget, which is similar to prior years, which we would expect because the largest single expenditures are in employee personnel costs as well as benefits, and that's on a biweekly basis, so it's occurring at regular patterns, pretty evenly split across the quarters. We've collected about 47% of revenues, which is pretty standard and expected because most of our tuition payments are coming in the month of August, so you get a lot of money in one particular month, and then property taxes are generally spread across October and November, and then again back into April and May. So we're on course for matching up with actuals against the budget that was adopted and meeting our financial stability requirements.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the board web, and who's taking the lead in this?
I'll go for it to begin with. Okay. We've been looking at our website, and we're under policy governance here at the community colleges, and it's not always easily understood by those that haven't spent way too much time understanding it. Our website never really had the data on it as far as the governing board's website as to why and how this whole process works. And the discussion tonight is, in this case, since a lot of it was done here in the last day or two by our staff to get some pages moved from one place to another, and now if you go onto our governing board website, you'll find a summary of what type of policy governance we're under and how the policies relate to not only how the governing board works, not only with the superintendent, but within ourselves, as well as our outcomes that you heard a lot about today, and the limitations that we give our chancellor to work within. So hopefully over time we'll continue to enhance our operations as a governing board under policy governance and make it known on our website as well.
Thank you for putting this on the agenda, Dana and Doyle. I appreciate your work on this. I think it's important that we have the public be aware of how we are a policy governance, what that means is what's the board role, how we go about making policy, and how what our job is and looking at the ins and outcomes and what that means. I think it's going to help the community understand what we're doing. It's going to help each board member understand their role because we're going to spell it out on the website and add more detail on what it is and the history of how we've been following policy governance prior to this year and several years past, and how we moved into a partial policy governance, we moved into more of a policy governance, and how this is going to affect our agendas and future leadership.
Okay. Ms. Pearson?
I just want to make sure that we understand that this is a discussion on the idea of creating a web page, because there has been nothing done as far as creating the who oversees this, who and how what's on there is designed, created, and by whom, who represents the board in these kinds of comments, how it's changed, who keeps it updated. There is a lot of questions about this. I mean, this is a really neat idea, but there needs to be a lot of discussion about the strategic planning and the structural ins and outs and policies even to this item, or to this becoming a reality.
Yeah, it'll definitely have the approval of all board members before we put anything on there.
Well, those are discussions, we're just talking about, you know, personally, I feel like that this should have gone through a different process in coming to this point, because I personally felt a little bit surprised to see it approached this way. So I would like to see us take a little bit of a step back and discuss the first steps first, rather than the back steps.
Well,
last step.
we thought that just discuss it, we want to discuss it in a public meeting, so we put on here, surface the ideas, so we can have that discussion, and we do appreciate your input on that. We're not trying to do a backdoor surprise or anything. It just, we had no other way to, you know, one or two board members, we can talk about it, but we can't talk about it with everybody until we actually put it on the agenda and then discuss it in a public forum, was the process. I mean, that was our thinking.
And next year, we're planning our board meeting so that we go through our policies and the limitations and the like, and we're looking at them again, and these will all be public meetings, so this will fit, I think. Any other discussion on the creation of a web page?
Well, I think that idea of a public meeting is just for clarity is, our job as a board, and that's why we even want to stay on the website, our job as a board is to do business in public with the public notice having to go out. Anything we discuss has to be, the public gets notification. We do it through our website, or we post it, and it has to be at least with 24 hours in advance. And I think that's just part of, so we do business in public. It's not always, and people kind of, why can't I just come up here, come to the board meeting and start discussing your items with you? Well, it's not really set up for that. It's set up for, we just sit here, we do business, and we just do it in public. It's not always and we have one part of the meeting where we have public input. The rest of the meeting is not a public input meeting. It's a meeting that we do in public just so we're not having any backroom discussions and private decision-making and people are not knowing what's going on. And we want to just put that up front and say, this is what we do, this is how we do business, and that's what we want to put on our website. That's who we are, that's how we do business.
Again, I just want to restate, it's not that I have a problem with the concept and the idea. I think it is a good one. I just feel like that we first need to, before we just all of a sudden, okay, we're going to do this, there's a lot of other discussion that needs to occur, and we need to include a lot of people in, okay, how would this look? What would the process be? What would the timelines requirements be? How long would it take? What is the time frame for adjustments and changes? Who makes those updates and changes? And under what authority and process for that authority and each of those changes for being approved? So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yes. I think that's a legitimate point. There are some standards for the web page that need to be established.
And so we need to decide who it is. It needs to be decided who do we include in helping us to design and create. I would suggest it was probably Teresa. It helps us to create that outline and design as to how this will look.
I appreciate those comments. And we're looking at, well, this looks like a need we have to articulate what is policy governance and how do we put it up front for public view. We go, as a board member, I can't call staff up and say, do this, you know. So how we go about doing it is put it on the agenda and discuss it with the board, come to consensus, and then let the Chancellor decide how he's going to sign it and who's going to do that. And so that's what the discussion is, and I think we're on the same wavelength as your concerns, Ms. Pearson.
Okay. Any other discussion? Our next meeting is November 28th. Let's see, that's in about 14 hours. And but it's an interesting meeting, and I encourage you to come. We're talking about capital planning. We are looking at a possible bond issue in 3 or 4 years. And in these meetings, we're talking about educational needs and programs. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about community support. And we're trying to identify specifics that would go into a bond before we take a vote on it. So encourage all of you to be at the meeting tomorrow afternoon at 2:30. Is that right?
Here?
2:30, yes.
Yep.
Let's see, Tina, is it in this room? In this room, yes. And then after that, our next regular board meeting is December 11. That is not a work session. It's a regular board meeting because we won't meet on the fourth Tuesday in December. The meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.